final presentation of today's IT Showcase Online. I hope you've enjoyed the previous two presentations, or if this is your first, you're in for a treat. I'm joined by Phil Nicholls from Medatech, who's going to be talking about software investment over the long term, and how you can, get value and keep your software relevant for a long time. Just before we do so, if you haven't tuned into another webinar of ours today, I just want to go through how we're going to be using Zoom today. We have a chat function, which I like at the beginning of all of these webinars for everyone to kind of just give me a wave or put hello in the chat. Why don't you give me some feedback about how today's going? Perhaps you're going to tell me I'm the most boring presenter you've seen on any Zoom webinar you've come in on, but I'm all right. I've got thick skin. So just use the chat to say hello or give me some feedback. And at least I know I'm not talking to an empty room there. Separate to the chat, you've got the Q&A function. After Phil's presentation, if you've got any questions of our speaker, Phil, I can ask those. So just use those separately and I will come to those at the end. Today's presentation is billed for 30 minutes in length, so make sure you've got your coffee topped up and nice and hot. We are recording today's presentation. We've set up a YouTube channel, which is all very well and good. Looking forward to sharing the presentation on there afterwards. You can also see all of our previous talks on there. So make sure you head over to YouTube, Google and search IT Showcase and you'll be able to subscribe. From there, I'm going to stop waffling. So I'd like to invite our third and final speaker of today, Phil Nicholls from Medatech, to present his talk. Hi, Phil, you all right?
Hi, yes, Ash, thanks very much. Right, okay, so thank you, Ashley, for that. A couple of things before we start. If anyone wants to have copies of the slides that I'm going through today, I'm more than happy to provide those. If anyone wants to have a chat about anything that I end up talking about today, then perfectly happy to engage in that. Just please put in the chat, yes please, and then Ash will be able to coordinate that afterwards. Okay, so let's start by sharing the screen. So hopefully we can see that. Right, okay, so hopefully everyone can see that okay. So good afternoon, everyone now. Thanks for attending the presentation, specifically on how to keep your business software relevant in the long term. Whilst there are undoubtedly many types of software this could apply to, I am specifically, of course, speaking today about the ERP marketplace. Let me just get the PowerPoint working. Right, okay, so first of all, a little bit about myself and about Medatech. I'm the Managing Director of Medatech UK Ltd. We've been established since 2001. We have a mission to maintain a community of happy customers, because if our customers are happy, that means that we'll end up being happy. So we have a very long-term and international view. We have offices in Israel, UK, Australia, the US, etc. And so let's get this to catch up. And we are Priority Software's only gold partner. So that means that we are the most mature of their resellers and the most capable. And obviously we have the longest global reach around the globe. Around the world, we have 1,500 customers all using Priority Software. And we do act as a one-stop shop for them, so we can provide their hardware for them. But more importantly, we can also provide them with the integrations that's necessary for integrating with other pieces of software that any of our customers might be using as well. We are a completely self-sufficient organization. And what we also do, of course, is provide a lot of standard add-ons for the Priority environment. So it's not just about what comes out of the box. We are also very expert in providing additional functionality, which we then implement and support for our customers as well. So moving on to the subject for today. So how to keep your ERP relevant. let's face it, first of all, ERP systems represent a very significant investment. Software licenses have a significant cost. The resources to implement them are significant both for the client and for the supplier. Ongoing costs of maintenance are also an important part of the picture. When assessing total cost of ownership, it must cover many areas, not just the obvious ones identified, but many internal costs that are normally hidden will be affected by the ERP and so should be considered in the total cost of ownership. Consequently, we must have a target to extend the life of these systems as much as possible in order to ultimately maximize the return on investment. Don't forget, once you change your system, then the return on investment calculation stops at that point. If you're not using a system anymore, you cannot gain any more return on that investment. So at the point you change, the ROI resets and you start the ROI process again for the new system. So our challenge here as business owners and as managers is to make sure that often our largest software investment we're talking about here remains relevant to our business for the longest possible time. To remain relevant means it has to change. Okay, so how do we execute that change with the lowest cost and the lowest effort? Okay, little comment about change. Many years ago, I remember hearing a phrase that was at that point a surprising comment to me. It says the only constant in life is that everything changes. Okay, today that actually is not as true as it used to be because change can no longer be considered a constant anymore. It is accelerating. Okay, this change is being driven by a number of external factors: technology, machine learning, AI, Internet of Things. Events that happen, natural events, coronavirus, obviously, man-made events, global warming, political events, Brexit, etc., and also market changes. So if you think about the whole of much of the high street moving to online, the growth of the delivery market, there are so many changes that are going on these days, and we have to cope with them. We want to be able to maintain our ERP system, and we want, therefore, to be able to manage the change that's happening. But what's going to get in the way of actually doing that? Okay, so let's first consider the main barrier to keeping our ERP relevant, and that is that change. This will come in many guises. First of all, technology change, whereby new technologies frequently takes many years for technology changes to be perfected, but they will eventually impact many areas of our lives. Examples of this: mobile computing, digital assistants, other forms of AI or machine learning, etc. Functionality changes give you the ability to operate processes differently, thus making procedural economies. For instance, web markets, Amazon, Zapier, shipping providers, etc., streamline the way we do our business. And so therefore those changes can affect a lot of the processes and procedures that our businesses will go through. All of your businesses will be subject to internal and external changes. And this change in itself will be challenged. Okay, so just the fact that something changes within the organization will be challenged, often by the very employees whose working lives will be simplified. So four main areas of change there, or difficulty to change. Let's have a look at each of them in turn. So first of all, technology. Whilst advances in technology can bring great advantages and savings, they do represent a challenge, especially to established solutions, established ERP systems. One side of the story, of course, is the developer side. It's the ability for the developer to incorporate all the new technology, but this must also be matched by the client's commitment to upgrade their systems to take advantages of these new benefits. Okay, there is no point in an ERP developer developing more functions within the ERP if the current customer base does not then upgrade to take advantage of those those benefits. It's unrealistic to expect clients to jump from system to system simply because a new piece of functionality becomes mainstream. It's time consuming, it's expensive. The quicker the technology advances, the higher the cost of switching systems when a new technology feature appears. Examples of such advances over the years include a number of things. Email, for instance. Whilst we all take this for granted these days, it's been and it has been superseded in a lot of cases by other communication apps in recent years. It still represents a massive change in everyone's outlook, if you pardon the pun. Even today, there are systems out there that do not make use of this. They don't make use of email integration, and this now quite commonplace feature. Mobile computing is very liberating, but the fundamental systems that we use every day have had to radically change to accommodate the new features of mobile computing and mobile technology. Cloud computing has had a massive effect on the distribution of hardware, and all office systems have had to adapt to cope with the changes it's brought. Open source software has provided lots of opportunities for brand new solutions to emerge, but also for established systems as well. It's allowed them to modularize and update their code base, so that established systems have also been able to make use of open source software. Business today is by definition collaborative, meaning you don't operate alone anymore, and those partners you work with have their own systems which you need to integrate with. These include specific web marketplaces, shipping providers, data interchange providers, and others. So we can all think of examples: Zapier, Amazon, Ship Engine, Shopify, Ship Theory, etc., etc. The list today is very long. So moving on to the second point of functionality. New functionality is appearing all the time, many different arenas. As it does, it gets adopted into different environments. The ability and drive of the government, for instance, to make all their transactions digital has driven the ability to report and pay your VAT digitally and automatically. And it looks like it's not going to stop at VAT either. But this type of change is very dominant, of course, because due to the government's power, first of all, to enforce through legislation, and secondly, ultimately to fine non-compliant companies. As artificial intelligence and machine learning become ever more mature, the influence of these technologies is impacting more aspects of our lives, and industry is not slow in making the most of this technology. Modern personal digital assistants, e.g. Electra and her sisters and brothers, of course, and also not to be confused with the old PDA that I remember from the 90s, is now graduating from something just to switch the lights on at home to any software that we need to interact with. So voice interaction with software is happening everywhere. As the banking industry has loosened up over the years, more methods of paying suppliers have been invented, and those need to be catered for in all of our ERP systems. Thirdly, there is business change. Okay, so reasons for such business change are many and varied. All businesses should, of course, strive for continuous improvement. This involves constantly changing your current practices to cut out inefficient processes and non-value added activities. Many businesses will constantly be on the lookout for new business opportunities. In order to survive, you have to grow. And this is most often epitomized by moving into new market sectors. Producers of standardized products will constantly look for new products and product variants to continually look to add new revenue streams. Expanding your influence in the marketplace can be shortcut by the timely merger or acquisition. And of course, we've seen that over the last few years, whilst many pundits suggested that M&A was going to decrease in its influence, actually it has increased. So true external influences do not come any larger than new regulatory legislation that may influence the products or services you're allowed to offer to the customer base. And of course, the massive change that we are all being reminded about on a daily basis now is Brexit. And that, of course, for a lot of businesses will represent a massive business change. So finally, with these change factors, we need to consider the effect of pushback. Okay, so this is, if you like, at the opposite end of the scale, as it's actually a force against change, but nonetheless, it's an important factor in the need to keep your systems up to date. So if you need to keep your systems up to date and keep your systems changing, then this is going to mitigate against it. When we're talking about the purchase and implementation of software in the corporate setting, we have the added complication of split responsibilities. First, the decision about which software you use, as with all other decisions within the business, rests ultimately with management. With an ERP system, management level more and more are becoming users, so they actually have personal experience now in the requirements for the usability of this sort of software. There is also, however, the operational level, which usually has more contact with the software, but may not have as much influence on the decision making. They will have much more effect on the operational efficiency of the business through their use of the software. Couple this with the natural human response, which has been talked about for many, many years, to resist change, and you get the situation where, if not handled properly, there can be a significant pushback from the users of the system, either to new technology or just the concept of an upgrade to existing systems. And this, as I said, has to be managed carefully and specifically. So coming back to our challenge that I was talking about earlier, keeping our systems relevant, requiring change. How do we keep and maintain the relevancy of our systems? Well, it's fairly easy to think there are two main ways. Either you keep implementing new systems, as I mentioned before, as they introduce new technologies. But as I said, it's prohibitively expensive in licensing, training, implementation, development, etc. Nobody wants to go there. So the other option really is to frequently and regularly upgrade your ERP to keep it up to date with all the latest features and technologies. So the challenges that we face for upgrading, as the client using an ERP system has for upgrading. So there are many challenges here. You need, of course, to find the right partner that will bring you the advantages that you're seeking. And they must, first of all, as a matter of course, upgrade on a cost-effective and regular basis. Okay, there's no point having an upgrade once every 5 years. You'll have missed the boat on a lot of technologies if you do that. So upgrades really needs to be on at least an annual basis, preferably more frequent than that. Provide new interfaces to new types of hardware that make interaction with the system easier, both in ease of use and with availability of use. So specifically, these days, we're talking about mobile. So not just your desktop computer, but your mobile phone, your tablet, any form of computing device that is easy for you to use is the mode of use of the software that should be provided by your ERP provider. They should always be introducing new technology. Okay, everyone around the world is introducing new technology. If your provider, ERP provider, is not providing that route to the new technology, then you need to think seriously. And they need to provide new ways of working that fit with your industry and with your company ethos. All this must happen without impacting two important aspects. First of all, your data. So your data absolutely cannot afford to have to change from one upgrade to the next, and any developments that have been introduced to improve your processes. Everyone's in a different business environment, and so their systems to match their business environment in a lot of cases will need to be developed and have customizations to them. Those customizations must work seamlessly from one upgrade to the next. Now, you may say this is all obvious, and why wouldn't you? Well, yes, but the evidence indicates the opposite, actually. One article caught my eye recently by Panorama Consulting, and if anyone wants to see this, then I'm more than happy to share it. Identifies that 50% of SAP Business One customers do not or cannot upgrade their systems. Okay, this is not a dig against SAP, absolutely, but I think this is indicative of a lot of the marketplace. That there are a lot of clients of ERP systems out there who either cannot or do not wish to upgrade their existing systems, and that will ultimately have an impact on the profitability and the effectiveness of that business. So, in order to achieve the return on investment that we are all looking for, we should all be seeking in the lifetime of an ERP system. Obviously, that lifetime should be as long as possible, certainly more than 10 years. This means any ERP purchase needs to consider future factors as much as possible. No one can foretell the future accurately. If you think back to this time last year, absolutely nobody could have predicted where we are today. So no one can foretell the future, but you can see how vendors have dealt with new challenges in the past. Every vendor has a track record, so have a look at that track record, investigate it. The number and regularity of new releases, if they actively encourage their customer base to upgrade. Okay, look at the vendor's plans for the introduction of new technology. All viable ERP solutions should be in a program for new feature introduction, and vendors should be actively publicizing this. Costs, as identified in their price quotations, in their contracts, etc., regardless of whether we're talking about subscription licensing or license purchase models, costs should be clear and reasonable. And support is one of the most important aspects of an ERP implementation. If you think about it, if an implementation takes, let's say, 12 months, a lot of them take a lot less than that, and some take more. But let's, for the sake of argument, say an implementation takes 12 months. You intend to continue to use that system for in excess of 10 years. That means that the ongoing support over those 10 years could be considered to be 10 times more important than the initial implementation. Okay. Now, the picture is never that simple. There are a lot of other factors that come into this, but at the end of the day, it certainly serves to make you think about the importance of support as part of the overall picture. And it's something that is quite frequently overlooked or forgotten about by purchasers of ERP systems. So what can you and me and everyone else within this environment do to assist with this? So first point, of course, is to make sure you have a flexible solution that allows you to follow the processes that will keep you efficient. And these processes will be different in every single business. Flexibility is important, very important in two specific ways. First of all, to allow you to have the processes that you need today. Okay, the ones that you need today are not necessarily the ones that you're incorporating today. It could be that you need to move to new processes. But secondly, and probably more importantly, is to allow you to flex your system to allow new processes as they evolve. Once you have that solution, it's imperative you keep it up to date so you gain advantage from new technologies as and when they emerge. All software is advancing quickly. ERP systems don't operate in a vacuum. They need to integrate with Office products, web technologies, etc., as I've already mentioned. Finally, you need to be in control, which means the constraints of your business cannot be compromised due to outside constraints. For instance, if you run a 24/7 operation, you have to plan carefully any downtime required for software upgrades. In that scenario, you cannot succumb to your software vendor dictating when upgrades occur. Okay, that will be a very important factor in the way that your system gets implemented. Now, of course, you will be most surprised to hear that one such example of an ERP system that does provide all of this is Priority, but I will leave the hard sell just to that. I'll leave that at that point. So finally, conclusions. In the current climate, change does not stop. It's accelerating, and just part of that, and that's just part of the landscape we exist within. That's nothing we can change. We cannot stop the world. It will continue turning. New features are more important than ever as a lever to produce ever more efficiency in your operations, and to make the most of your ERP investment. You need to find the vendor who makes upgrading easy, provides frequent and regular upgrades, and gives you a cost-effective route to keeping updated. Hopefully that's all made sense. And at that point, I would like to hand back to Ash so that if there are any questions, he can take them.
Thanks, Phil. Really enjoyed that. It was an interesting presentation, really nice angle on software over a long term. So look, I'm going to come on to some questions in a minute, and I'd encourage any of our visitors that have questions, that apply to them specifically, to put those in the Q&A now. And just before we come on to those, offer again the chance, if you put yes please in the chat, Phil will send over a copy of his slides, also that article he mentioned, and perhaps give you a chance to talk further about your needs particularly. So just put yes please in the chat and I'll make sure that happens. Phil, in terms of question and answers, I had something that came to me whilst I was watching that. As you see the world change a lot and ERP become more evolved, has the rate of change and the rate of upgrade increased with that? Or do you find that as we get more mature as a kind of industry, that rate of change slows?
The rate of change is ever accelerating. And that is having an effect on, certainly within our customer base, we're finding that that more and more people are upgrading more frequently. If I think back 10 years, people were really reluctant to upgrade their system because they saw it purely as a cost. So therefore they wanted to put off the cost as much as they possibly could. These days, people are far more open to the idea that, yes, okay, there may be some costs to the upgrade process. However, the benefits that they are getting far outweigh that cost. So we are finding that people are upgrading far more frequently than they used to. We produce upgrades once every 6 months. Now, nobody upgrades to every single one. Okay, nobody does that. But an annual upgrade is getting very common now, especially within our customer base.
And is that the standard? And do you predict that, staying that way for a while, or is it going to be that people are going to have to continue to upgrade more frequently than that? Or is it kind of a year is going to be the real upgrade timeline?
Yeah, I think it'll be difficult for businesses to justify upgrading more than once a year, purely and simply because there is a natural requirement for people to test the new upgrade. So that is going to take an element of effort, and people are not going to want to do that too frequently. Okay, so once a year I think is a happy medium, and I think what we'll actually find is the fact that as change accelerates, the number of upgrades will not accelerate to more than one a year, but we'll find there is more functionality actually coming out in each new upgrade.
Right, okay, brilliant. No, that makes total sense. And just away from kind of the upgrade questions, obviously with everything that's going on at the moment, we've got visitors here at the moment that might be considering researching new software. They might be considering upgrades. They're looking at their options. Mm-hmm. How have you found that software research has changed now? And what advice would you give to our visitors who are in that position of looking at their next piece of business software?
Well, what we've found over the years, of course, is that the point at which people make physical contact with us as a supplier, they are far more informed than they ever used to be. Okay, because of the proliferation of information, for the amount of data that people can put on their websites, and everything around looking at how businesses perform over the internet, then that just means there is so much more information around, which means that by the time people actually come and physically talk to us, they're halfway down the road of knowing that in our case, priority is going to be a suitable solution for them.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. And that brings us sort of to the end of your presentation, Phil. So
Okay.
I really appreciate you taking the time to go through that with us. It was a really insightful talk. Lots of feedback in the chat saying that they appreciate the way you approach that. So really well done there. Thanks to everyone that's watching and taking the time to see our third keynote webinar of the day. That is our last one. However, if you want to head back to our online event, all of our suppliers are still on hand to have a chat and answer any questions you may have. They've also produced some content for you, which you won't find anywhere else on the net. So if you are starting that software journey and want to conduct some research, please do head to our online event. It should be useful for you. Phil, a few people have put yes please in the chat, so I'll make sure that I pass over those details. And if you have put yes please in the chat, Phil will be in touch. So again, thanks very much for everyone's time, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.